I'm ready. Let's go. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, brilliant. Are there any stats, particularly involving young people and the impacts that we are having on the spread of COVID?
Well, not specifically. I mean, most of the Public Health England data is based on who gets the disease and the contact tracing element of it, i.e., who they've been in contact with, is dependent on how many people are willing to engage with the contact tracing app. And statistically, young people are less willing to engage with contact tracing than older people. But if we want to judge the spread on the basis of the number of people getting fined for breaking social distancing rules, the national police data shows that in 1 month last year of 2020, 57% of all the fines handed out were to men between the age of 18 and 34. So that would suggest that if rule breakers are responsible for the spread, then it's mostly young men. But I think that's slightly unfair, but that's the closest thing I can have to who's spreading the most.
Okay, thank you very much for that. With up to 20% of people who have tested positive for COVID having caught this in the hospital, is it risky to attend hospital appointments?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and you're right, it's a fact. NHS England did say last May that about 10 to 20% of people in hospital had actually gotten coronavirus whilst they're inpatients. But I think there are a few important points here. One is most outpatient appointments are actually being done either via video or telephone now to reduce the risk of that spread. Secondly, if you are going to go to A&E, for example, or urgent care, and I say this carefully, just make sure it's absolutely necessary, okay? Because that risk is there, but the hospitals are doing their best to try and reduce that risk. For example, having hot zones where people with suspected COVID symptoms sit away from those who don't have it, temperature screening at the door, having COVID-specific wards. So, they are trying their best, but I think the take-home messages are only go to hospital if necessary. And secondly, the hospitals are taking all the necessary precautions to reduce spread within hospital.
Other than in hospitals, has it been established any other situation in which a large number of infections have arisen from?
Well, yeah, I mean, the government and Public Health England aren't the most popular people in the world at the moment, but some of their policy is evidence-based. And, prior to these lockdowns, especially the second and the third one, the Government Advisory Committee, SAGE, along with Public Health England, listed the 7 most likely places to catch coronavirus as follows. 1, your house. So yeah, I know, you can't escape it, can you? But yeah, no, people who are living together, are more likely to catch the coronavirus if one person's affected, and hence the reason why they've got that rule. If someone in your household has symptoms, then you should self-isolate. The other is social gatherings. So, that's why they've stopped fans going to football, music concerts, horse racing, all that kind of stuff's been stopped. Third, restaurants and bars, apparently. Fourth, gyms and fitness studios. Fifth, religious services. And lastly, stores and shops. So you can see that all those things at the moment, we can't enjoy, maybe other than your home, and it's for a reason, because apparently the data supports that that's where the virus spreads the most.
Hadn't there been updates to the self-isolating if someone in your home has it? Were they changing?
Correct, yeah. They've reduced the number of days that you have to self-isolate. It was previously 14, it's now 10, unless you become symptomatic, that is. And I think the reason for that is the greater availability of testing. So if someone in your household does test positive and you have symptoms, then you should definitely order a test straight away.
Okay. Should runners keep more than a 2 meter distance because their breath travels further due to the effort they are making?
Yeah, this is a this is a brilliant question because I'm a runner as well. I run 3 times a week in the park, and I see people jumping off the pavement to get away from me. But
I do admit
I
I do.
mean, the official guidance. There's been a lot of speculation about this, but the official guidance is that no, the 2 meter rule applies to runners as well. Now, the only kind of guidance they have given is it's better to run alone than in groups. And also, if you are running, in a place where there are lots of people, you should avoid the slipstream, okay, of runners. Okay, so the direct lane behind them or to the corners of them. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but presumably it's because that's where most of this hot air is going.
The next question is, should I be quarantining things that come into my house, like shopping and parcels?
Yeah, another good question. I mean, how far do we go with this? But if we want to look at the facts and the evidence base, apparently the coronavirus can survive for up to 72 hours on plastic and stainless steel, and up to 24 hours on cardboard. All right. Now, with all that being said, I think if you're receiving deliveries, a lot of the delivery companies now, I mean, if you forever ordering Uber Eats like me, you'll know that they're doing socially distanced delivering now. The drivers are wearing gloves. They leave it outside your door. So maybe things like that you could probably get away with. Maybe just putting the packaging in the bin, as soon as you can. But yeah, stuff from the supermarket or stuff that you buy outside, I suppose there's no harm in wiping it down with a little Clenil, Clenil wipe, the plastic packaging, and of course just washing your hands as well. All the other basic stuff. Wash your hands and don't touch your face too often, and hopefully you'll be okay.
Do I need to change my clothes when I come in if I've been somewhere where other people are?
Yeah, so honestly, these are brilliant questions. They're really, you can tell some thought's gone into them. Look, I mean, they're going under the assumption that you're following these social distancing rules, right? So if you are going out, okay, I mean, the shops are supposed to be closed now. It's supposed to be click and collect. The supermarket's effectively the only shop we're really able to go into. Schools are also shut for the same reason, because we know about transmission. Now, I mean, this situation is always changing. I can only speak for the present and going forward, okay? If schools reopen on the 8th of March, I'm assuming it's because the government's going to be confident enough that, transmission is down, the number of cases are down. Depending on your age, it's impossible to completely segregate primary school children. Should the parents of primary school children be getting them to wash their uniform every day? I don't know. I think practically that's probably quite difficult. I think going to the shops, probably less necessary, because if you are keeping your distance from people, you're not giving people hugs, you're not supposed to be shaking hands, you're not allowed to try on clothes in the shops or sit on furniture. So I don't think that should be necessary if you're following the social distancing rules.
Thank you very much. Does the vaccination prevent from the spread of COVID as well as protection from catching it? I've heard that even if all of my friends and family get vaccinated, we will still not be allowed to meet up.
Yes, the golden question, isn't it?
The big one.
If I get vaccinated, will I have my freedom back? Well, look, again, if we look at the evidence base, there are two parts to this question. The vaccine doesn't actually prevent you from catching COVID. This is true. It just reduces how severe the disease will manifest in you is. Okay, and the long and short of it is the jury's out on whether it prevents spread. Early data from the trials that Public Health England has done has shown that spread might be prevented by about 67%, but until the vaccine's definitively shown to prevent spread, yes, it's true, we'll still have the vaccine and still have to socially distance. However, some of the more promising data from countries like Israel is that the vaccine is actually stopping transmission of COVID. So, you know, I don't think, you know, we're going to be socially distanced forever. I mean, that's just not realistic, is it? But yeah, I think more data is needed on spread.
I feel like for some young people, if they will still be having to do the 2-meter rule and they won't have that freedom, what is to push them to get this vaccine then?
Correct. What's the incentive? Yeah, really good point. And you know what? It's such a controversial topic, isn't it? Because I think you're absolutely right. The key question for young people is, if this vaccine doesn't prevent spread and I still have to social distance, why should I get it? And the thing is, that's not a question for me to answer. I think we'll have to wait for one of those 5 o'clock briefings from Professor Whitty and Boris Johnson to answer that one.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I guess there are a lot of questions on this vaccination, a lot of unknown. Is one vaccine better than the other?
Okay, so the 2 ones currently available in the UK at the moment, or licensed, are the Pfizer vaccine and the AstraZeneca one, otherwise known as the Oxford one. Now, the trial data that both of the vaccine manufacturers have published shows that the Pfizer vaccine is slightly more effective than the AstraZeneca or Oxford one. Now, it's not really a case of better, you know, maybe it's like you comparing a BMW to a Mercedes. They'll both get you to the destination you need to get to, you know, so I wouldn't discriminate between either. You know, if you're offered a vaccine and you want to take it, then take it. But in terms of side effect profile as well, they're roughly both the same. And honestly speaking, no, I wouldn't say one's better than the other. They both, you know, do the same thing, achieve the same outcome.
Okay. Would it be possible to choose between the 2 vaccines?
Currently, no. I mean, I'm involved with the vaccination program in the local area that I work in Thornton Heath, and I think initially what we were doing is giving the Pfizer vaccine because it's what we had, but that one's more difficult to store and transport. So, you know, for some of our housebound patients, we'll give the Oxford one just because it's easier to transport. And if you're willing to go to a vaccine centre, then if available, you can get the Pfizer one. So, to be honest, no, at the moment, we don't have enough of a supply to be able to give people a choice.
Okay, thank you. There are so many conspiracy theories going around about the vaccine. Me and my friends are wary. What would you advise to help young people make a decision about taking it?
Gosh, to be young in this age, you know, the age of social media, it's frightening, isn't it? Because you're bombarded by so much Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And I think the most important thing, and this doesn't just apply to the vaccine, the most important message I have for young people when they're making informed decisions. So when you're making any decision in life and someone's providing you with information, okay, you have to ask yourself a few questions, okay? 1, what's the source of this information? All right? Just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. So ask yourself, what's the source? Secondly, is the source reputable? Okay? So If I want advice on how to fly a plane, would I ask a pilot or would I ask a butcher? Right? So ask yourself, is the person who's giving you this information qualified to do so? And then I think lastly, you just have to weigh up the pros and cons. You know, each decision is a personal decision. Um, I think when it comes to young people, everyone's in an individual situation. So there might be some young people with pre-existing health conditions, long-term medical conditions, and that's why the vaccine groups have been split up on the basis of risk. So far, most of the young population wouldn't have been offered it unless they've got some kind of medical condition that means they should have it. But look, the facts are, you know, COVID is very real. You know, an incredible amount of people have died from it. An even larger amount of people have had the disease and are still suffering the consequences of the disease. So I think all of that should be taken into account by any young person who's thinking, when they're offered, of course, of having the vaccine. And, you know, it's a personal choice, but please make an informed choice.
Thank you. So no WhatsApp chains or just social media. Make sure you do your research.
Yeah, do your research. Question the source.
I'm staying at home and obey the rules and see so many people not doing so, even partying. It's getting me down a bit. How do we deal with people as well as take precautions around those who aren't obeying the rules?
It's all over the news, isn't it? You're seeing police crashing, you know, raves and underground gyms. There was even a pub that's been rumbled in Bristol. Yeah. There was a pub that was rumbled in Bristol recently called the COVID Arms. They called it. Can you imagine the cheek of it? Yeah. But look, the truth is, you know, there are rules, and the rules are set out by the government. The government are the people that govern us and set the laws, and there are consequences to breaking the rules. You know, very hefty fines. And even now, if you're found to come back from holiday and you're lying about it, you know, you can get up to 10 years jail time if you don't quarantine. So I think that should show you how seriously the government's taking this. So, you know, unless you're a risk taker, you should probably take the rules seriously as well. And, you know, I don't think it's any of our jobs to worry about people who aren't obeying the rules. You know, that's what law enforcement's for. But, you know, hang in there is the message I give. I think we're all fed up, you know, and it's been over a year now, well, almost over a year now since, you know, we've been in some form of restriction or lockdown. But the hope is that the end is nigh, you know, and I would say to people, just hang in there and let's hope that, you know, we're going to be free sometime soon.
Right. So mental health question. I'm struggling with my mental health. Is it still okay to go to the GP, or should I leave those services for those who really need it at present?
Yes, absolutely go to the GP, and nobody needs those services more than you, whoever's asking this question, thinking, you know, they're not worthy. No, 100% mental health is so important, even more so given the circumstances and conditions that we're in. You know, if caught early, something can be done about it. And I think 100% speak to your GP, local counselling services like we have in my locality, you know, brilliant organisations like Off the Record, if you're a young person, and the IAPT program. So, no, 100% listen, even if you think it's not, you know, that serious or a bigger problem at the moment, please talk to someone, talk to your GP, because we want to help.
Thank you. Do you have any personal tips on how you've been able to look after your mental health during this year?
One thing that I always recommend is find a reason to get out of the house. Now, that's not me saying break the rules, okay? But I think make use of the allotted daily exercise. You know, even if it's a walk to the shops to go and buy a paper, some bread, try and get out of the house at least once a day. Secondly, exercise is invaluable for mental health. You know, if you can increase your heart or respiratory rate, you know, get a bit out of breath, break a sweat, it releases natural endorphins, you know, natural feel-good drugs. So I think, you know, getting out of the house, exercise, having structure, plan to do something and force yourself to do it, even if it's learning a new language, building something, tidying up, you know, your wardrobe, getting rid of your old clothes, something. Just set yourself a task each day, and talk to people, you know, your friends. You know, technology's made it possible to interact. So, you know, Zoom, what's the popular one now? Clubhouse, and, you know, stay in touch with people.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your tips. And thank you for joining us again and answering all these questions for these young people, because it's nearly been a year. Things have really changed over the course of the
Yeah,
since we last spoke. Yeah.
they have. Yeah, no, honestly, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.